It's a privilege to be here as your new MP for Suffolk Coastal. A win that perhaps shows you that the die is never set in stone, and if we work together, change is always possible. I think some of you may know that I'm not just your new MP, but I'm also a very local MP. I grew up here in Suffolk Coastal. It's the place I went to school, it's where my family grew up, and it's a place that shaped me. And I talk a lot about that, and I have talked a lot about that, because I think it's very important. But one thing I don't often say is that on my father's side, for generations, they were Oldborough born and bred. In fact, they owned and ran the baguette shop in town for years and years, many decades ago. Now, during the election campaign, I think I had a chance to speak to hopefully many of you, and I certainly set out a lot of my own priorities. And many of those priorities are personal priorities shaped from being here, from growing up here, and from seeing all the issues that were represented here in Suffolk Coastal that affect my family and affect the communities around those. And three of those I talked about quite a lot. One is adult social care, one is special educational needs, and one is the environment. Obviously, on another day, I'll bang on to you about the importance of the other two. Today, we're here to talk about the environment. And now, in Suffolk Coastal, our natural environment naturally is the jewel in the crown. From our rivers to our seas to our heathlands, you don't have to spend too long here, even live here, to know how important and how precious this local environment is, not just locally, but the role it plays nationally. And Adam spoke previously, and Lord Deben spoke as well, about the role that biodiversity plays, not just in the local environment, but in order to protect our national assets and drive forward net zero and prevent climate change even further. And the environment is more broad than that. It's been, for me personally, the river and sewage scandal that we've seen shows that if we don't pay attention to the right issues at the right time, it can have a detrimental impact on the things that we hold dear, and so quickly and so fully that those assets can be taken away from us, and that we need to stand up and we need to protect them, which is why that I've worked really with local groups, with national bodies, and why I'm pleased to see the Labour government driving forward its planned reform for the water companies to hold them to account. And I believe that right action, we can make positive change. And locally, we talk a lot about the heritage coast. It's something that, thank you. It's something that Fiona mentioned earlier, and it's something that in the conversations that I have, the heritage coast comes up a lot. Now, I think it's really important that we can't talk about the heritage coastline without also talking about climate change. We will have no heritage coastline to protect if we don't take the urgent and necessary steps to prevent further climate change and drive forward our national ambition for net zero. These natural landscapes just will not exist. Lord Deben talked about the need to protect for future generations. We must have something that we stand ready to share with them and to pass on to those next generations. And I believe truly that the new government's commitment to upgrade our energy infrastructure and to divert our energy supplies to clean and green energy is beyond any doubt the right thing for this government to be driving forward. I know that these ambitions are bold and consequential, and I'm proud to be supporting them. I believe this is the greenest government, without a doubt, that we've ever had. But, and I suppose you're all waiting for the but we must all think big. Just like the railway revolution in the late 1800s, or the post-war housing boom in the 1940s, this is a moment for us to define our future generations' energy infrastructure. If we take the moment to build something that matters, we'll take the moment to affect change for the next 50 to 100 years. Now, I've made my submissions to National Grid and to Ofgem, and in those submissions, which I've shared with Fiona and Seas and with many other stakeholders, I've made clear that the strategic importance of the many projects that are planned for the Suffolk coast are more than the sum of their parts. Together, they provide that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to determine the future of our nation's infrastructure, whilst also ensuring the energy for the future generations. I believe that with that ambition and with that vision, these challenges that we've talked about today and the challenges that brought you here to listen to this rally can be overcome. And I've been putting that forward to National Grid and to Ofgem in the many meetings that I've had in the last 2 months since the general election. And I'm sincerely concerned that the current proposals around the piecemeal approach must be overcome. It's not acceptable that the way that the plans have been set out, a bit of change here, a bit of infrastructure there, a bit of destruction here, there's no way that that is the right plan for Suffolk Coast, but also nationally for an infrastructure plan to be going ahead. And that's something that I will continue And that's something that I will continue to champion, and it's something that I will continue to push on. And we've talked a lot about common sense, and it's something that we talked a lot about in the discussions about these projects. It's common sense that energy sources should be closest to where the demand is, that it's common sense that it should be brownfield first, and it's common sense that we should have a strategic plan that brings together and balances all our many and competing national interests, that makes sure that we hold the environment within that, and it's taken into account at the very beginning of these plans that we push forward with. So Fiona and I are going to have a short chat now. Thank you all for coming today. Thank you to Fiona. Thank you to the whole team. Thanks for bringing the great weather. It's been a delight to listen to the music and to hear everything that's been happening as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. And with those encouraging words that we will remember, I want to ask you 3 questions. First of all, what are the positive assets that you have rediscovered in the last few months as you've met with local communities and walked and journeyed around Suffolk Coast and Heaths region in particular?
So Suffolk Coastal constituency is incredibly large. It's one of the largest constituencies in the country. It's certainly one of the longest. It takes an hour and a half to drive from the tip of Felixstowe up to beyond Southwell, where this constituency ends. And our natural heathlands, our environment is incredibly diverse within that space, and so too is are our communities that live and work within those spaces. I have to say that the challenge, that diverse challenge of some of the issues that we face, I've talked at the beginning about adult social care, special educational needs. I will say that don't take for granted the multitude of challenges that families face across Suffolk Coastal, and that's something that I carry with me fully and sincerely in my sense of service and duty in stepping into this new role. I will also say that there are many families in Felixstowe that have never been to Aldeburgh, they've never been to Southwold. So you may take for granted that it's so obvious that there are so many challenges here to you, but don't take it for granted that within this one constituency that I represent, those challenges aren't necessarily the priorities. So the work that you do, the work that campaigners do to make sure that you're pushing forward on a national agenda and making that voice is incredibly important. Finally, I think I've had an incredible amount of support in the 2 months since I've been a newly elected MP, and I do massively appreciate that support. It's an incredible community to represent. Everybody's been so willing to work with me in my new role, in my exciting new role, and so willing to help and make sure that they introduce me to the right issues, to the right people. So thank you, and keep doing that, keep reaching out. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Jenny, and we hope that you'll soon have some support. Is there an opportunity for more cross-party work on such an important issue as energy infrastructure? Can you, for example, work with Adrian Ramsey of the Green Party in the Waveney constituency?
Yeah, just quickly on Fiona's point about support is that I don't actually have a fully functioning team yet. It's not the lack of support that I receive. It's my team is being recruited as we speak, so it is just a one-man band at the moment. On wider political support, absolutely. The environment, in fact, Lord Deben once said to me, the environment shouldn't be political, and I absolutely agree with that. Since I've been elected, Tom and I have had meetings. I've met with cross-party issues. Tom Daly and I have had meetings. I've had continuing conversations with politicians of all colours and all flavours. I will say, and I agree with Lord Deben's points in his talk earlier, we have to show leadership. It is not just simply a case of switch off the tap and stop all development. We have to drive forward net zero. We have to stop this march of climate change. We have to find the right solutions. So I will work with anybody that's pragmatic and wants to find the solutions and wants to find the answers and the way that we can drive forward. And that, to me, is not just an environmental issue, it's an everything issue. That if you can see a problem and drive forward a solution, I will want to hear that and I will want to work with that. And that doesn't matter what party you are, it doesn't matter what your background is, but it's a drive and ambition to see the change done.
Terrific. That's very promising. The third question: an offshore grid could provide massive economic growth opportunities for Britain. Can you elaborate on your views about the economic growth opportunities that we have here?
Yeah, I think this is a big question. This is a big question for a long discussion. It's partly about the economic opportunities, but it's also partly a question of tackling the cost of these things. And a few of your speakers have said, look, it shouldn't just be a quick calculation of this costs this much, therefore we drive forward on the cheapest route. It should be a calculation that takes into account the future needs, the future environmental needs, climate change, the impact of the community, and making sure that 9 times out of 10, cheapest isn't always best, that we have to drive forward and make sure we're making the right investments now to invest in tomorrow's generation, but also in terms of tomorrow's energy needs. And when we do that, when we've looked at when I referenced in my opening remarks about the railway revolution of the 1800s and the post-war housing investment, and I know although the Industrial Revolution, now we look back on it, at its time it drove forward a lot and we didn't understand the consequences on climate change for that. But where you make big investments on a national footing, where you make long-term choices that are in the right interest and where you can weigh up complex, competing interests, you inevitably create a much better project forward. And that means nationally, our economy will be stronger. It means nationally we'll be investing in the right skills. It means nationally we'll be investing in the right issues that are going to be the issues for tomorrow and beyond, things that we can't even comprehend. And of course, it means locally that we'll be protecting the local economy as well. So I think it's there's a whole conversation we could have. We could be here for days talking about the economic impact on a national and local level. But I think at the heart, cheapest, quickest isn't always best.
Well, again, I think that's a really very encouraging response. Thank you, because